Good morning, honorable members.
Morning, Chair.
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that.
The meeting is declared open, and I would like to welcome the delegation from the department, as well as honorable members. And I'm informed the delegation from the department is led by the DG, but I think let's start with apologies before we can proceed. Secretary, can we get the official formal apologies that we have?
Good morning, everybody. We have received apologies from the minister, but I do see that the minister is in the meeting at the moment. The minister is attending a session in the NCOP. The DG will be joining the meeting, but will leave the meeting at 10 o'clock. DM Kadiming is in a prime meeting in Limpopo, and DM Bapela will be, DM Bapela also sent apologies. He's attending a meeting in Cairo, Egypt. Thank you, Chairperson. Sorry, we also do have the State Law Advisor, Ms. Lisa Naidu, in the meeting that's dealing with the bill that we will be discussing today.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable members, any other apologies? Maybe again, I've not checked the attendance. PC Secretary, do we form the quorum?
Yes, Chairperson, we do.
Okay. No further apologies. I think we note the rest of the apologies. The agenda item for this meeting is briefing by the department on the Independent Demarcation Authority bill. I think all of us, we by now know as lawmakers that we expect in terms of Section 85 of the Constitution that the executive supposed to develop policy, national policy, as well as prepare and initiate legislation in terms of that section. That is why then we expect this briefing. There isn't much that I would talk about in terms of my opening remarks, except to welcome members in this term and hope that this is going to be a very busy term and will continue to attend on time. And equally so, this is an important item. I have been unfortunate in that I've been in the previous portfolio committee. When we're about to initiate a piece of legislation, I left that committee. So I'll also be part of you here, also learning in the process. Welcome, the meeting is open. Can I now invite the DG to lead the item, this briefing? She will guide us as to how we are going to approach it. Over to you, DG.
Sorry, Chairperson. I just received a message saying that the DG will be joining a bit later. She's in a ministerial cabinet committee meeting, and that Dr. Naidu will lead the delegation from the department.
Over to you, Dr. Naidu.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, all honorable members of the committee. I see Honorable Minister is also in the meeting. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me just get the presentation going.
I'm not sure if I hear you well. Are you saying the minister is part of the meeting?
Honorable Chair, I do see in the list of attendees. Oh, okay, it's no longer there. So, all right, let me proceed.
Okay.
All right, I just want to confirm if my presentation is viewable.
Yes, proceed.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. So the presentation that I'm going to be making is going to deal with the following matters. I'm going to provide a brief background as to what lives in the bill, the journey that we've taken to arrive at the point that we are at, structure of the bill and what lives in it, some details around the proposed amendments in the bill, and then at the end of the presentation to give a snapshot of the various processes, the responsibilities as they come together when the bill becomes operational. Honorable Chair, we've also, as part of preparing for this engagement, had shared the bill together with the memorandum on the objects of the bill with the committee as it was introduced into Parliament. So just as by way of very brief background, to say that the amendments that we have in the Independent Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill has been informed by inputs that we received by previous as well as the present Demarcation Board, informed by many of the lessons learned by outer boundary changes that have been made, as well as by ward delimitation, litigation that these processes were subjected to, as well as inputs from various stakeholders over a very long period of time. So prior to the bill being published in the Government Gazette on the 17th of June 2020, we had undertaken quite an intensive workshop over a 2-day period in March of 2017. And in that engagement, we had as our primary stakeholder, the Demarcation Board, IEC, SALGA, various national government departments, all our provincial COCTAs, as well as other stakeholders, including the South African Cities Network, for example. So post the process of obtaining public comments, we had convened a 2-day session in December of 2020, where we considered the comments that were received. And due to the very magnitude of the amendments that were being made to the bill, it necessitated that the act that we have in place presently be repealed and be replaced with a new act. Now, this is not uncommon because we also had the South African Human Rights Act that followed the same process. So just in terms of the journey that we've traveled to get to where we are, so initiated in 2017, or perhaps even before then, but in July of 2017, we had been provided with the Socioeconomic Impact Assessment Study on the pre-certified bill. We had engaged with our stakeholders in the local government, MINMEC, various engagements, as you would see, from 2017 up until 2019 with the Chief State Law Advisor, presentation to the then Governance and Administration Cabinet committees, as well as the technical committees. But at the bottom of the slide, you will see those 2 dates highlighted in orangey yellow color, 14th of February 2019 and the 8th of October. And those 2 dates signify the transition or the period when we were preparing for and had the national and provincial elections that had taken place of May in 2019. So that period of 7 to 8 months where there was no real work that could be done on the demarcation or the IMDABL at the time. The next slide, on the top, you would see those dates highlighted in yellow and indicating that at that time, engagement had taken place within the JISCIT committee, the revival or the resuscitation of the bill, but also the committee asking that we give assurance that the bill did not impact on the forthcoming local government elections. At the bottom of that slide, in March of this year, we had gone to Cabinet Committee, presented the bill. There were further revisions or comments that were made that necessitated further engagement with the Chief State Law Advisor. The bill was finalized, revisions made to the memorandum on the objects of the bill, and then, following the rules of Parliament, introduced the bill formally into Parliament on the 21st of June. So the structure of the bill is as such. We have 52 sections in the bill, 5 different chapters, and each of the chapters we've identified as being constructed as indicated on the slide. So we also indicate on the slide here the number of sections per chapter and a very high level in terms of what lives in each of those chapters. So when we look at the architecture of the bill, so we now refer to it as the Independent Municipal Demarcation Authority Bill. And we've done this so that it makes very strict alignment with the provision in the Constitution, which says in section 1553B that national legislation must establish criteria and procedures for the determination of municipal boundaries by an independent authority. So you will see that the title of the bill expresses this provision that is in the Constitution. We have in the long title now, amongst others, also provided that one of the functions and responsibilities of the demarcation or the authority is that it would need to undertake capacity assessments of municipalities, a matter that is presently provided for in the Structures Act. In section 3 of or clause 3 of the bill, we provide for authority and now making a clear delineation of the board and the administration. When you look at the functions of the authority, we now include specifically that an additional function of the authority would be to conduct municipal capacity assessment, although it is provided for in the Structures Act presently. We use the opportunity of the IMDA bill process to make sure that all of the legislative provisions, be it in the Structures Act, be it in the Systems Act, be provided for in a single piece of legislation dealing with the authority. Significantly on this slide, when it comes to the appointment and the composition of the board, we now provide that the selection panel will consist of a member from the Portfolio Committee, the COCTA Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly. Presently, it is just the select committee that is represented in the committee, but we've also now extended the panel to include a representative from the National House of Traditional and Khoisan leaders. Section 11 is quite significant in that we deal with the term of the board. At the time that the bill was published for comment in the Gazette, with the provision that related to the term of office indicated that the term of the board should be 7 years. Now that was to ensure that the board in place would be responsible for both outer boundary changes as well as ward delimitation by a single board. Because presently what we've had ever since the first board is that the responsibility of outer boundary changes was done by one board. The term had come to an end, and then you had another incoming board that had to take over the finalized boundaries by the board, and they would then have to deal with the delimitation of wards. So what happens now in the IMDA bill is that we've aligned the term of the board to the term of municipal councils. So that entails that the board that we would have in place would be responsible for both outer boundary demarcation or determination, as well as for the delimitation of wards for the same term of local government. So the term would end 6 months after the commencement of the term of local government, and then, emphasizing that the board would be responsible for both of these huge functions that the authority is responsible for. The next slide clauses in the bill deals with the committees of the board, but excluding the power for a committee to make a final decision on the determination of municipal boundaries. We have now the board or the IMDA bill or Act to be aligning with the Public Administration Management Act of 2014. It provides for secondment of officials from other organs of state, but also, the provisions that we have in the IMDA bill aligns a lot with our new generation legislation, and specifically when we have a look at the Border Management Authority Act that was recently assented to by the president. And I mean, recently it could have been, I think, 2020, 2021. The provisions now also make mention of alignment with SPRUMA. Factors to be taken into account significantly. A new addition in the bill now includes the views of the people and communities living in the area. So the board must take this into account when they do deal with boundary demarcation. So at the center of, and as you will see when it comes to public consultation and participation, etc., at the center of demarcation, be it outer boundaries or delimitation of or the inner boundaries of municipalities, we've emphasized that public consultation is at the center of all of these processes. So an important provision that is now included is that major boundary redeterminations will only take place after every 10 years. We've defined upfront in the legislation that a major redetermination would be the movement of one or more wards. So if that is the case in a municipality, it will only take place after every 10 years, but that does not stop the authority from doing minor technical adjustments as they would do from time to time in their ordinary course of their work. The authority will not determine or redetermine municipal boundaries after the minister publishes the formula determining the number of councillors. So as had happened in preparation for the 2016 local government elections, the delimitation of wards to some extent had been finalized, but then a further redemarcation process had been undertaken. And this, had led to some challenges being experienced when it had come to preparations for local government elections, the transition matters that had to be attended to and finalized before the elections, as well as to be managed after the elections. Importantly, in section 33 or clause 33 of the bill, or perhaps first in section 31, the board or the authority must also provide reasons for its decisions. So presently, the board will publish its final determinations in the Gazette, and that's the end of it. But now, the board or the authority would be required to provide reasons for the decisions that it would have taken. In clause 33, authority would be required to publish a delimitation of wards timetable in the Government Gazette. So pretty much like we would have the IEC publishing a timetable of events, major milestones that they would need to achieve, commit in terms of dates in the Government Gazette, the authority would now be required to do the same in terms of how they would undertake or the timeframes for outer boundary demarcation, the formula to be published, ward delimitation, etc., all leading up to the holding of local government elections. In clause 35, we indicate the norm that must be adhered to when ward delimitation takes place. But we also say, and this is based on attempting to ensure that we do not have split communities in the main, but also in instances where geographical areas impedes the determination of ward boundaries. So we say in those instances, the board may deviate, but by not more than 30% of the norm. So in clause 37, we say that the board must also provide reasons for those decisions, to those who submitted objections, and to also provide reasons for such. So just to indicate, buttressing the openness and transparency of ward delimitation and outer boundary changes that the authority would undertake. Clause 47 of the bill provides, and this is a chapter on its own, provides for municipal capacity assessments. And we indicate there that the authority must also provide assistance and guidance to the minister and the MEC regarding the assignment of functions and powers, as well as render an advisory service. We've also made specific reference in the bill, cross-referencing to Chapter 5 of the Structures Act, so the entire Chapter 5 of the Structures Act, as well as to Sections 9 and 10 of the Systems Act, which deals with this matter relating to functions and powers. And we also say in the bill that the authority must conduct at least one capacity assessment in respect of each municipality during a term of municipal councils. But resources depending, it may also undertake a mid-term capacity assessment review. Importantly, and now this is also aligning to the term of the board that we would have in place and the incoming board, for the authority to complete at least 6 months before the end of term of the council, the capacity assessment, which would be handed over to the incoming board. So that incoming board would have in its possession the capacity assessment of all of the municipalities in the country to assist them to undertake the outer boundary assessment process, which would then lead into the changes of inner boundaries, ward boundaries of municipalities. So when we look at section 50, we talk about the amendment of laws. So sections 2, 3, and 4 of the Structures Act will be repealed through this legislation. Sections 2, 3, and 4 deals with the types of municipalities